7 times, 7 different empires, same exact collapse pattern every single time. This isn't prophecy. This is mathematics applied to human behavior. And right now, the pattern is repeating in the world of artificial intelligence, threatening a $1 trillion crisis. You might think AI is just code, but its true value lies in something far more fundamental: the data it's trained on. Let me show you the economics behind it. Generative AI models, the ones creating art, text, and code, are only as good as the data they consume. Think of it as the fuel for their intelligence. This data isn't just random information. It's often proprietary, painstakingly collected, and represents a massive investment for the companies building these AI systems. The promise of artificial intelligence is transformative, but the foundation it's built upon is becoming a legal minefield. We're talking about the very ownership of digital information. Consider the sheer scale. Training a single large language model can require petabytes of data. That's millions of gigabytes. Where does all this data come from? It comes from the internet, from books, from art, from code, from countless hours of human creation that have been digitized. And that's where the trouble starts. Companies are scraping vast amounts of content, often without explicit permission, to feed their AI models. This is the core of the data acquisition strategy. This data acquisition fuels the AI's ability to learn and generate new content, but it also raises critical questions about intellectual property rights. Who owns the original works used for training? What constitutes fair use in the age of generative AI? These aren't just academic debates, they have massive financial implications. The official story is that AI training is transformative, creating something new. But the reality is that the output can often closely resemble or even replicate the training data. This is not a bug, this is the feature. The AI learns by identifying patterns, and those patterns are directly derived from the data it was fed. And here's where it gets interesting. The value of an AI model is directly tied to the quality and uniqueness of its training dataset. Proprietary data becomes a competitive advantage. This creates an economic incentive to acquire as much data as possible, as quickly as possible, often pushing the boundaries of copyright and fair use. Think about the artist whose work is used without consent, or writers whose books are ingested to create AI-generated stories. They see their creations being used to build a competitor. What you're losing right now, if you're a creator, is control over your own intellectual property. Your work is being used to train systems that could eventually devalue your creations. The cost of not knowing this is immense. If your data is used without compensation, you're essentially providing free labor to build a multi-billion-dollar industry. Let me show you the pattern. History shows us similar battles over new technologies. Each time, the question of ownership and fair use becomes paramount. During the Industrial Revolution, inventors fought over patents for machinery. In the digital age, it was about software and music. Now it's about data. The core issue is that existing copyright laws were not designed for AI. They struggle to define what constitutes original work when it's generated by an algorithm. This legal ambiguity is creating a massive bottleneck. Companies are hesitant to fully deploy AI models if they face potential lawsuits over data ownership. And here's the critical part. The valuation of these AI models is directly linked to their perceived legality and their ability to operate without infringing on existing IP. If a model's training data is deemed illegally acquired, its value plummets. This uncertainty is already impacting stock prices and investment decisions. Let me show you who profits and who loses in this data gold rush. The AI developers and the companies with vast datasets stand to gain immensely. But what about the creators? The artists, writers, and musicians whose work forms the bedrock of these AI models. They often see little to no compensation. This is not a conspiracy. This is market economics at play. Data is the new oil, and AI companies are drilling for it. The US Copyright Office is grappling with this, issuing guidance that AI-generated works are not copyrightable unless there's significant human authorship involved. This ruling, while a step, doesn't fully address the training data issue. It focuses on the output, not the input that created it. But here's the twist. Even if the output is deemed original, the input data might still be subject to copyright claims. It's a complex legal web. Consider the lawsuits already emerging. Getty Images is suing Stability AI for allegedly scraping millions of images. This is just the beginning. These legal battles aren't just about individual cases. They're setting precedents that will shape the future of AI development and valuation. The economics of AI training data are becoming a battleground for a potential trillion-dollar IP crisis. Who truly owns the digital building blocks of artificial intelligence? Let me show you the stakes. If AI companies are forced to pay for every piece of data they use, the cost of developing AI could skyrocket. This would fundamentally alter the economics, potentially slowing down innovation or making AI accessible only to the largest corporations with deep pockets. And that's where the David versus Goliath aspect comes in. Startups might struggle to compete if they can't afford the data licensing fees that big tech can absorb. The pattern is always there. New technology emerges, challenging existing legal frameworks and creating economic winners and losers. What makes this dangerous today is the speed and scale of AI development. Unlike previous technological shifts, this is happening at an unprecedented pace. Right now, the same questions about ownership and fair use are being debated in courtrooms and boardrooms worldwide, impacting billions in investment. The economic fallout could be immense. Imagine AI models being devalued overnight due to a landmark court ruling on data ownership. This isn't just about copyright, it's about the fundamental valuation of AI technology. If the data is tainted, the model built upon it is too. Think about the implications for your own digital footprint. Every piece of content you've ever shared online could potentially be used to train an AI. What you're losing is the ability to control how your intellectual property is used and monetized in this new digital landscape. The cost of not knowing this is that you might inadvertently contribute to the creation of systems that devalue your own contributions. Let me show you the first piece of evidence. Stanford's AI Index report highlights the escalating investment in AI, but also the growing legal challenges. It notes a significant increase in patent filings related to AI, but also a rise in litigation concerning data usage and algorithmic bias. This report confirms the economic significance of AI, but also the underlying legal risks that are becoming increasingly apparent to investors. Remember when I mentioned the scale of data needed? That's the core of the problem. Acquiring that data legally is a monumental task. The US Copyright Office has acknowledged that AI-generated works lack copyright protection if human authorship is minimal. This impacts the value proposition. However, this doesn't directly address the input data. The question remains, can you copyright the process of learning from copyrighted material? The math says it's complex. If AI models are trained on copyrighted works without license, the resulting models could be seen as derivative works, infringing on original rights. This is where the trillion-dollar valuation comes into play. If a significant portion of an AI model's training data is legally questionable, its market value could be severely impacted. Let me show you the second piece of evidence, the lawsuits themselves. Getty Images versus Stability AI is a prime example of this conflict. Getty alleges that Stability AI unlawfully scraped millions of images from its collection to train its AI image generator, Stable Diffusion. This case is critical because it directly challenges the fair use defense often employed by AI developers. It asks whether scraping copyrighted material for training is permissible. If Getty wins, it could set a precedent requiring AI companies to license vast datasets, dramatically increasing development costs and potentially slowing innovation. This is not prophecy. This is mathematics. The economic model of AI development hinges on the cost and legality of data acquisition. Anyone with a calculator can see that if data licensing becomes prohibitively expensive, the entire AI industry's valuation could be threatened. The pattern is always there. Technological advancement outpaces legal frameworks, creating economic disruption and legal battles. This is not a flaw. This is the system working as it always has. New technology emerges. Existing laws are tested and new precedents are set. But here's the catch. The speed of AI development is unprecedented. Legal systems are struggling to keep up, creating a period of intense uncertainty. What makes this dangerous today is the sheer volume of data being processed and the global nature of AI development. The legal battles are happening simultaneously across continents. Right now, companies are making multi-billion-dollar bets on AI. But the legal foundation for those bets is still being laid in courtrooms. The economic consequences of these lawsuits could be staggering, impacting stock valuations, investment strategies, and the very future of AI companies. Let me show you the third piece of evidence, the market reaction. We've seen significant stock fluctuations for AI companies facing data-related lawsuits or regulatory scrutiny. This volatility reflects investor uncertainty about the long-term economic viability of AI models trained on potentially infringing data. The market is pricing in the risk of future legal challenges and potential payouts, which directly affects the perceived value of these companies. This is the economic reality. Intellectual property is a core asset, and challenges to its ownership directly impact a company's balance sheet. Now here's where most people get this wrong. They focus on the AI's output, not the input. The real battle is over the data itself. The economics of AI training data are complex, involving valuation, ownership, fair use, and the potential for massive legal liabilities. Stay with me because the next part changes everything. The legal battles over AI training data are not just about copyright. They're about the future of innovation itself. If AI companies are forced to pay exorbitant fees for data, it could stifle competition and concentrate power in the hands of a few tech giants. This would create a market where only the wealthiest can afford to build cutting-edge AI, limiting access and potentially hindering broader societal benefits. The pattern is clear. When access to essential resources becomes restricted, innovation suffers, and economic inequality often increases. Let me show you the contrast. On one side, AI developers argue for broad access to data for innovation. On the other, creators demand fair compensation and control over their work. In theory, AI should democratize creation. In practice, the economics of data ownership could centralize power and limit access. This is the core tension, balancing the need for vast datasets to advance AI with the fundamental rights of creators and the principles of fair use. The economics of AI training data are a reflection of this fundamental conflict, with potentially trillions of dollars at stake. What you're losing right now is the clarity on who owns the digital building blocks of the future. This uncertainty impacts everyone. The cost of not knowing this is that you might be investing in or relying on technologies whose economic foundations are unstable. Here's why this matters today. The decisions made now in courtrooms and legislatures will determine the economic landscape of AI for decades to come. We are at a critical juncture, where the legal battles over data ownership will directly shape the valuation and accessibility of artificial intelligence. The pattern repeats. Each time a new technology disrupts the status quo, the fight over its economic and legal framework intentions. Same playbook, different players. The battle over AI training data is the latest chapter in this ongoing economic and legal saga. Before I give you the 3 takeaways, consider this. The true value of AI isn't just in its algorithms, but in the data that empowers them. And that data is increasingly becoming the subject of intense legal and economic scrutiny, potentially sparking a $1 trillion IP crisis. So what should you take from this? First, understand that AI's value is inextricably linked to its training data, making data ownership a critical economic factor. Second, recognize that existing legal frameworks are ill-equipped for AI, creating uncertainty and fueling costly lawsuits that impact valuations. Third, develop awareness that the fight over AI training data is a battle for control over future innovation, with significant economic consequences for creators and developers alike. The economics of AI training data aren't just about code, They're about the fundamental rights of creators and the future of intellectual property in the digital age. If this has opened your eyes to the hidden economic battles shaping AI, subscribe because the next video will explore the antitrust implications of AI monopolies. Will AI consolidate power or democratize it? Patent Wars has the answers. I'll show you where to look.